Hello friends, Jenkins here, bringing you another Dota 2 video on behalf of Dota Alchemy, and in this video I'm going to be doing a replay analysis because it's been a while since I've done one of these, and in particular, this is a replay analysis of one of my own games in solo queue, Immortal Bracket, where I was playing Pudge. I figured lots of people are asking for support content, so why not give the big guy himself some love? Gabe Newell. No, Pudge. So anyway, without further ado, let's get right into it. So first and foremost, I want to talk about starting items, and I know it's kind of boring and I'm going to be going into a lot of detail on something that's very simple, but I think on this hero it matters a lot because you can really tremendously screw up the first 5 minutes of the game and you're just useless for the entire game. I'm sure you guys have had experience with either you playing Pudge and that happens, or some Pudge on your team is completely useless, but if you have a good first 5 minutes and you make up for the fact that this hero is very, very weak at laning by building right and playing right in the early game, you have a monster of a hero in the late game and not just some like useless feeding hero. So anyway, I started with 2 Enchanted Mangoes, 2 Clarities, Windlace, and 1 single Tango. So the reasoning behind this is because there are 2 types of lanes, at least in my opinion, that you can play as Pudge. One where you pick up a Stout Shield and go for a bunch of regen, and you sit there trading with the enemy team and trying to deny them as much as you can, like double denying with your buddy. But this lane, it is Lich plus Terrorblade, so I figured if we're trying to play on the creep wave against them, they're going to do a shitload of damage to us with all of Lich's ridiculous harass abilities, Terrorblade with Metamorphosis, and just honestly having way better attack animation and damage and armor. There's no point in playing like that, so the way that I want to play this is the other way that I like to play Pudge, which is I'm just going to go Meat Hook, use the Windlace to just position myself around the trees, and then just buy a bunch of mana regen and spam my hook out as much as I can, where I'll essentially try to very slowly, methodically drain their HP low, but not really commit to any fights. Because if I commit to any fights, even if I have a Stout Shield or whatever, boots, doesn't matter, they're going to kill me. I have 0 armor. You can't sit there and trade with Pudge unless you know that they're not going to trade with you or they're a way shittier lane. But they could actually kill me if I try to run at them with Rod or hook them and try to hit them. Like, the way I want to play this is slowly, methodically winning the lane, so that's why I built a bunch of mana regen items. The Tangos are just for convenience sake, because really the way that I see myself regenning in this lane is I will kill myself to this tower a bunch of times and use Rot to suicide. Maybe even kill myself by just running at heroes. But my idea behind this lane is just like using as much mana as I can to hook as much as I can, be as much of a pain in the ass as I can, and then try to kill myself. So I don't need Tangos or Salves because I just want to suicide once I have no mana. So I'm about to say something that's going to sound very spooky to potential Pudge players out there, and that's the fact that if you miss 2 to 3 hooks in the first 2 minutes of the game, I think you're going to lose the lane, and as a result, the game is going to be very hard and people are going to be mad at you. The reason for that is because 2 to 3 missed hooks is 1 minute 30 seconds of not having hook available, and the only scary thing about Pudge in the laning stage, and the thing you need to abuse, is the hook because of the damage it does. If you don't have that damage available to you, good players will capitalize on the 1 minute and 30 seconds of missed hooks and use that to get an advantage that will be more than enough to win the game, at least in my experience. So, with that being said, like I said, it's not actually as scary as it seems, and that's because in the early game, you should be viewing the spell as pure damage, not as this, you bring somebody from over there and put them right in front of you on Pudge. That is the most broken thing about Pudge in the late game. Don't get me wrong, but in the early game, this is one of the best damage abilities for the mana cost in Dota. The problem is, it's a long cooldown, and that's why I'm fighting before the game actually starts in this replay. We can see the Lich here. He's running away. He's thinking all about that repositioning element. He doesn't want to get pulled over here to the Beastmaster and take a lot of damage. So as a result, I just pump fake the hook by just S-canceling it, force him to walk back and forth because he's so scared of me. He uses the Frost Armor, which is great, and the only time I hook him is when he's in point-blank range. So the Frost Armor, total waste of time for him. Metamorphosis was used, another total waste. We get a little bit of harass on the Terrorblade from the Beastmaster because he's trying to save the Lich, and that is basically exactly what you want when you throw a hook in the laning stage on Pudge. You want to bait out as much as you can, but not really commit, because if you commit, you're a 0 armor hero. Sure, you have 62 damage, but you no longer have the hook available. You don't have a lot of armor. You're going to take a lot of damage. It's all about playing to do as much as you can with those hooks, and then when it's on cooldown, you just play passive, and you will eventually, slowly but surely, win the lane in that way. So here we are before the rune actually spawns. Terrorblade used Metamorphosis, so I think as a result they really want to abuse that and fight this. Basically, Beastmaster sitting over here. He's going to be tanking a lot of the damage when I run up this way because I don't want to take right clicks from them. We see that the Lich is getting really low, putting himself out of position. So I use a Mango and say, okay, we can kill this guy. We can first blood this guy. The moment I see that Terrorblade could potentially kill me, I just run as far away from him as I can. And I try to keep a straight line where, like, he's running this way and chasing me, right? So I'm not going to go up this way because potentially if I ran diagonally, he would get an extra hit off on me, which would probably kill me because I have 0 armor and no stout shield. So essentially I was just telling this Beastmaster, all right, man, you try to hit him as much as you can. I'm going to kite him. I know he's not going to hit me if I run in a straight line. And as a result, the Lich actually comes back in to try to help the Terrorblade, and we get a kill on the Lich. So once again, I just run in a straight line away from this guy, especially with the boar. I know he's not going to be able to get me. He turns around a little bit because I was like telling this Beastmaster, hey man, I'm just gonna bait him. I wasn't gonna right click him or anything like that. It was literally just an attempt to get as much damage as I can on them in the early game. And that's probably the most important thing here is, like, your thought process should not be about getting kills. It should just be about getting as much efficient damage as you can get in the early game, because if you can do that, you're not going to be useless, to say the least. You're not going to overcommit and get yourself killed like an idiot and then end up being useless. If you're just thinking about damage, you'll back off when you need to back off and you won't overcommit for kills. So I suicide there because, once again, it's all about the harass. It's all about the regen and playing the efficiency game in this lane. I pick up a Gauntlets of Strength, and the reason for that is because I really genuinely think that this hero is very risky to run in the early game, and you need every single thing that you can get, and you need to play very, very well. Otherwise, you really run the risk of being completely useless. So you definitely want to, if you die and if you commit suicide with either rot or by running into the enemy tower to get more regen, you want to bring your laning partner stuff from the base because you need that little bit of efficiency, and you want to bring stuff for yourself from the base. Even if it's just stat items, it really, really matters. So I know I keep harping on this, but I can't stress enough how much I think that this hero is absolutely amazing if you can manage to have a good early game, just because I think that the majority of the time, the early game is when people are losing on Pudge. So essentially, as a result of that thought, I spend a lot of my time in the early game doing very traditional support stuff that is incredibly useful, that doesn't have to have anything to do with my hero. So essentially what I'll do is I will spend a lot of time contesting this pull, making sure that Lich can't get the pull off, and I'll spend a lot of time checking this bottom rune and getting the bounty runes, getting the side pull off and things like that, just because I know that if I try to lane, you know, with the hook and potentially try to kill this guy, he's going to be under his tower. He has 12 armor at 1 minute 44 seconds into the game. It's really unrealistic to have those expectations to apply pressure to him rather than doing these like very traditional support things. But as a result in this game of playing the kind of traditional support style, I actually was very, very useful. So I walk over and contest the pull, so the Lich just can't get the easy camp pull off. That's just going to make the lane a little bit harder for them. And, you know, like I said, it's not... doesn't have anything to do with Pudge. It's just the fact that I'm there contesting it. He can't get it off. I check the bottom rune. Once again, nothing to do with the fact that I'm Pudge. It's just good supporting. And I get an invis, which prevents them from getting it. And then as a result, they commit to this Beastmaster into a huge creep wave. I didn't think we'd get a kill here, but they completely overcommit, not knowing that I have the invis rune. And as a result, the Lich dies. We send a huge wave into their tower. So because I'm very low in mana, and I know that the way that I want to play this hero, even if I'm just contesting the pull, is I want to abuse the fact that I have that hook and I have that rot, which means I need HP and I need mana to be effective. So I kill myself. I buy out a bracer because it's really, really important to have these little regen items, like I said in the previous clip. And I ask Beastmaster, do you need anything from base? So he gets a Basilius. So now we have two very, very cost-efficient items in the early game. Enemy lane has none, and as a result, this lane gets a lot easier. Then it hits a certain point where my hero actually does matter. Because I killed myself, the Lich gets a pull off. To contest that, I pull the side camp because I know he's going to be dealing with the easy camp. Beastmaster can zone the Terrorblade, who's going to be farming under tower, so it's just a free side pull. I see that it's the 4-minute mark, so I walk over to check the rune. Necrophos is going back to base, but since I scout out the regen rune, I ping it. He walks over and he gets it. He's very, very low, so this is really good for him. And, you know, once again, making myself effective without actually having to do anything with my hook. I see that they're wasting time on the Beastmaster, so I just decide, all right, I'm going to be greedy. I'm just going to get the last hit on this Wildkin. And I screw it up because I'm an idiot, but it's just, you know, free gold, free experience that I should not be getting solo at that point of the game. They were just essentially giving to me. So I hooked the Lich just because I knew he didn't see me, and I knew that was like basically a free hook. Once again, just for the damage, and I'm intentionally sitting over here at the 5-minute mark to try to pick up both of the bounties, because if I tell this Beastmaster, which I did in the game, to push the lane, then essentially all I need to do is contest the Lich for these bounties. And if I have Meat Hook, this Bracer, and then Rot, he might kill me. Probably not. There's like very low likelihood that he'd kill me, but in the worst case scenario, I do a lot of damage to him. I'll get both the bounties, and I can just kill myself as well. So it's really not effective for him to come over here and try to take these from me. So it's just free bounty runes. Walk over. I see that the lane is pushing in, so I get prepared to do another side pull as I look to see if I could potentially contest the easy camp if he was there, just to scout and get a little bit of information. Side pull, and that's just going to give us a little bit of extra experience in this lane, and this is actually more so important too because the Winter Wyvern TP to the bot lane, so getting a side pull off against a tri lane is going to give us experience. It should be way, way harder to get in the game. So you can see here that Beastmaster is sitting at 23-7, which is very good, and we have a lot of experience in this lane that we probably shouldn't have if we didn't have the early game go so well for us, and Terrorblade is having a bit of a rough time. Would probably be rougher if I was a different hero, but once again, the trade-off is the fact that we're going to have this Pudge hero who is very, very effective in the mid to late game, more so effective than a lot of other supports because that hook is so strong and because the Dismember and Rod is so good. But the result is the Terrorblade gets a little bit farmed, but the Beastmaster is very farmed as well. So I walk over, pick up a Haste rune, keeping up with the notion of just contesting these runes. There hits a point in every man's life where he falls in love. No, I'm just kidding. There hits a point in every Pudge game where you should essentially just take a lane and be greedy until you hit level 6. One of the biggest mistakes that I consistently see across a lot of Pudge games is the fact that people will continue running around after you've already done your job in the laning stage. Like, you do your job in the laning stage. I have this Beastmaster that is very, very effective running around, getting kills, and I can essentially take advantage of that. And even if you have an offlaner that's not doing as well as this Beastmaster, then you can still take like the dead lane, for example, and farm. And the reason that you want to farm for a little bit, I'm going to pause here just because I make a movement soon, but essentially the reason that you want to farm is because you are so much more effective just taking a lane that's free, and at 10 minutes there should be a free lane, getting level 7 than trying to fight and getting level 7 from getting kills in fights. Like, you're going to be so ineffective in those fights without your Dismember that you're going to be almost useless, and it's going to take like 1 to 2 minutes longer to get that level 7. So a lot of the time you just want to take the free lane. So I get the Tome of Knowledge. I get my level 6. So I'm level 7 now. I'm looking all around the map just to see what the best opening is for me. I see that they're pushing the mid tower, and the reason for defending this isn't necessarily just because I know that I can get a kill here. Like, I thought I could probably kill the Wyvern or stop the Timbersaw, but the point of this is that I see that the fight top is not happening. It's far away. Lots of TPs happen to it, and so it's going to be a long TP for me. And then in the mid tower, I can defend this because I know that my power spike is really, really strong. So even if I just walk out here and act like an idiot, it doesn't matter because they're going to stop trying to push this, and I'm going to defend the tower. So I hit the Wyvern one time after I hook him in because I know that he's stuck, and even if he uses his Q to fly over, I can dismember him after one hit, and he's not going to fog me. So that was like the thought process there, and I thought I could get one hit before he Winter's Curses. And the reason that I do that a lot on Pudge is just because that extra hit a lot of the time can be what it takes to get somebody from full to 0. A lot of the time, if you don't go for that hit, they'll get away at like 1% HP or something like that. So basically, after a very nice laning stage, we capitalize on the fact that we have a really huge power spike with the Beastmaster having so much farm, with me having so many levels, and just with all of our cores being generally more farmed than theirs are. And we essentially just run at towers. It's very, very simple, at least in terms of what my gameplay is. Like, all I was doing was sitting and trying to fight as much as I can. So I want to talk briefly at the end here of this video just about how I was thinking about team fights in this game, just because for the rest of the game, basically, we just fight them, win the fights because we have a gold lead, and then take their buildings. But essentially, we have this fight here where we know they're coming down from the high ground, and as a result, people position really nicely in the trees here. We're far away from each other and not really committing to this push. I bait a little bit by walking up to the high ground, mainly because I know the Kunkka is over here and it's just the Timber running in. He uses his Chakram on me, and you can see that I don't immediately turn around to dismember him, and that's because in this game, I'm not focusing on getting kills. In fact, in most Pudge games, I'm just focusing on providing the most utility that I can in the fights without getting myself killed. So essentially, if I walk up and dismember him, then the Kunkka is going to torrent boat right on top of me, and then probably X the Necrophos, which means he's going to get a 2-man torrent boat, which could potentially win them the fight. And I mean, even if the Necro doesn't die, like if I die or if Grimstroke dies, it's a 4v5, and that's probably the only case in which they can win the fight. So I don't want to give them that. So I walk out over here and just kite a little bit. I try to hook the Necro out of the torrent boat combo, but I actually end up hitting something better, which is a Timber Saw. And the thing is, we have the fight is split into two now, where we have a Timber over here with me. So that is a trade of a Pudge for a Timber, which is definitely worth it. He's useless, I'm useless, because we're both just over here. Neither of us are going to kill each other, but he does way more damage than I do. And then my team is stronger than them, and they don't have their Timber Saw. So this is going to go really, really well for us as well. So this essentially turned out to be a lot better than it probably could have been, just because I hit the Timber Saw. You can see that I'm not right-clicking him. I'm just focusing on kiting him with the Rot, because I want to dodge the Chakram, and all I'm focusing on is just being as annoying as possible with him. We end up killing the Kunkka, which is very, very important. They chase down the Timber Saw when I miss the hook. I turn around, use the Buckler, which helps me kill the Creep Wave with Rot, and Lich was not expecting Beastmaster and I to be over here still, because he walks up, tries to deward very greedily, and gets himself killed. So we end up getting this tower, and this is basically what happens for the rest of the game. We run at the towers. The fights go very, very well, because it's a lot easier to take fights like this when you have a huge gold lead. So that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please let me know in the comments below if you want me to make more stuff like this, just because it's a little bit weird to do my own replays in terms of an analysis, but it also kind of makes sense just because I don't have to theorize what people are thinking. I can just tell you what my thought process was, if it was a good replay or good plays or whatever. But in any case, thanks for watching. I appreciate it, and I hope to see you in another video.